worked at the Dubai Mercantile Exchange in strategy and business development, and that's the main Asian oil market. My question to you is, what, in your opinion, did other African countries did not do well that Tanzania could do better in exploiting your natural resource? And why do you think Tanzania could do better than other African countries in that domain?
Thank you very much. As I said at the beginning, we have tried to look at the experience of others, see what others did right and what others didn't do so right. And I think one of the most critical pitfalls really is managing expectations. Because as I said, when you are a poor country, it's easy to say now we have discovered so much gas, we are rich, we don't have to work on the farms, we don't have to work in the industries, we should just find a way of dividing the money we are getting among ourselves. And that would be a big mistake. So I would say the most serious mistake is not being able to manage the expectations, because that creates political pressure. And if you go through the electoral cycles, you know, every political party says if we get to power, this is how we are going to spend the money. And sometimes that's not the best way to make such decisions. So I would say that the biggest mistake is not being able to manage the expectations very well. The other thing is, of course, capacity to negotiate, to make sure that you have the best deal you can get. And that's why I said we are considering actually trying to invite companies, the best legal minds that we can get to help us negotiate these contracts, because we have to get the contracts right. And finally, we have to be more transparent. As I said, the more transparent we are, the more the citizens themselves will make sure we get this right. So that's also extremely important. I think if we can address those issues, we should be able to avoid the mistakes that have been made. And one good example is, now this is not with oil and gas, it's with diamonds, it's Botswana, because they were very good with their communication strategy from the beginning, because they say, before saying that we are sitting on a lot of diamonds, they say, you know, we might have diamonds because we are close to South Africa, but we have to agree as a country that when we find this resource, it will be for the benefit of all of us. So those people who are near the mining areas won't insist that this is our diamond, this is our money, but it will be for the whole country, and the government can then decide what's the best way to make sure that everybody benefits. But also the concept of stewardship, that it's not only for us, but we also have to think of future generations. So I think these are the important things that we have learned and which we want to internalize.
And just to add a critical follow-up question for you, Ambassador, on the managing of expectations, building upon the overall direction that Rami was getting at. So why do you think that you will be doing a better job in managing expectations when it comes to natural gas than you did with gold? So my limited experience that I had with Tanzania has made me get the impression that many people are dissatisfied with the way that Tanzania developed its gold reserves, and they think that they didn't get a fair share, or that they should have seen more out of this resource. But when I talk to international experts, most of them would say, actually, Tanzania did a good job, and they pretty much got as much money out of their gold operations as one would reasonably expect. So I think there, when it comes to gold, there was a mismatch between what's realistically achievable and what people expected or hoped for to get out of it. So why do you think you've been doing a better job now than back when you had this gold rush?
Yeah, well, all I can say is that we are going to do whatever we need to do. We actually I'll come to that. We haven't done a very good job so far. I have to be frank about that. But coming to gold, it's true. With the benefit of hindsight, there are things that we believe we should have negotiated differently. But we were faced with two challenges when we began with gold. One was we were not very well known as a gold country, as an investment destination. When you find yourself in that position, you try to be as generous as you can so that you can attract the investment that you need. And secondly, most of the ores were in very remote areas where then the gold companies have to invest a lot in infrastructure themselves, which again, in terms of your negotiating stance, it puts you at a disadvantage. And finally, thirdly, it's the issue of capacity also, the capacity to negotiate good contracts. But as you said, some told you that we actually got a fairly good deal. It wasn't so bad, but we could have done better, and that's why a few years ago we began renegotiating with some of the companies because we believe that some of the risk elements that had factored in were no longer applicable, and we could renegotiate some of those. Now, coming to the gas, maybe some of you heard that we had some disturbances in a place called Mtwara, which is the area where the gas was discovered. And basically, it's because the people thought that the gas belonged to them, and we began building a pipeline to get the gas to Dar es Salaam, the capital. And they were thinking that we are taking away everything and they're not going to get anything. So as I said, I think we were not proactive enough in terms of communicating with the people. And since then, we have tried to get down to the people, to the grassroots, to make sure the people understand what we are doing and the benefits that will still derive to them. And so we are sort of trying to correct the mistakes that we made during the last 1-2 years, and we think that we can get it better this time around.
Thank you. So many more questions. So maybe Laura and then Götz then. Okay.
Thank you for coming to speak with us, Ambassador. My name is Laura Toe. I'm a second-year master's student in international policy studies, and I'm originally from Singapore. Yeah. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. From doing some background reading, it seems like there was some controversy in summer last year when a Statoil amendment was leaked, which indicated that Tanzania's agreement on production sharing with the company had differed significantly from the model production sharing agreement. What were the conditions that permitted such a difference, and how is the government planning to address this going forward?
Yeah, it's true. We have a model production sharing agreement, but we adjust it depending on the circumstances, because there is a big difference. I mean, if somebody is producing gas onshore, for instance, or in the shallow waters or in the deep waters, there are a lot of other things that we have to take into account. And when the oil company has issues that they bring up with the government, and we think that they have a case, I think it's okay that we shouldn't be too rigid, especially at this time. So that's what happened. But we had some experts actually from what might be called the custodian of global best practices, and they looked at the amendment and they didn't think it was too bad, that there was justification for that. So it's true we have the model production sharing agreement, but sometimes it's necessary to adjust it depending on the circumstances.
Good.
Mr. Ambassador, it's a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I'm Gözde, I'm from Turkey, and I'm a grad student in International Policy Studies program. And my question is, to what extent are you willing private sector to involve in all the stages of the fund resources like pre-production, production or delivery, and what areas are you preserving for higher government regulation and intervention? For example, are you planning to put some requirements on companies in terms of employing local human force, for example?
Thank you very much. We are certainly finalizing a local content policy that will guide the participation of local companies in the value chain, in the entire value chain. So we are working on such a local content policy. Our intention is that as many jobs as possible should be taken up by local people. And that's why we want to know the requirements of the international oil companies well in advance in terms of the skills that they need. And sometimes also developing curricula jointly with the international oil companies so that we can produce the kind of skills that they need. And they can help us also to make sure that our people get the international certification they need to work in the rigs and things like that. And we also try to build local entrepreneurship to make sure that our entrepreneurs know of the possibilities that are going to come in terms of services and products that can be sourced locally so that they can then build their capacity to meet the quality standards that these international oil companies will need. So this is something that we are working on. These are the things that we want to accomplish before actually the production begins.
Mr. Ambassador, I would like to express my thanks for your time with us. So my question is about the Dutch disease and the role of natural resources in exports. So when we look at for example, at the Middle Eastern countries, an important bulk of their exports is consisting of oil and gas, and this also impedes the development of industry. And as we all acknowledge, oil and gas produce revenues, but it doesn't create job creation. So how does Tanzania think about this problem in the future? So what is your plan in order to use the revenue gained from oil and gas to increase industrial development and create more jobs? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I said in my introductory remarks, we are mindful of what happened in the other countries, and as part of the communication strategy and managing expectations, is to encourage people to know that just because we have discovered gas, it doesn't mean we should abandon other sectors of the economy. So we are going to continue to diversify the economy, and this actually is one of the overriding objectives, that we should use the resources to diversify the economy, not to ignore other sectors, but to diversify the economy. And we are going to do that by, as I said, investing, making sure that we remove obstacles to the growth and the expansion of other sectors like agriculture, to make sure that we solve the infrastructure problems that we have, energy, transport, and that includes roads, ports, airports, so that the other sectors can also thrive. So this is something that we are going to focus on going forward.
Okay, Mark.
Hello, Ambassador. I'm Roberto Blanco from Mexico. I'm studying the Master in Management in the Business School. And previous to coming here, I was director of energy for a large company. And I participated in opening up markets for private investment in Mexico recently last year. My question to you is, commodities is one of the most volatile resources of revenues. So what will you do to manage volatility in your stream revenues? And secondly, what makes you believe that Tanzania can compete with other very large natural gas resource rich countries such as Qatar in the Middle East, Indonesia, Australia, or the US that are actually increasing their natural gas exports?
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're mindful of the volatility of global commodity prices, and in terms of the whether we will call it sovereign wealth fund. Some people say we shouldn't call it sovereign wealth fund, maybe a sovereign development fund. Whatever it is, that we are going to have a fund where we are going to put all the revenue that the government is going to get from gas. And we are going to have a very strict way of managing those resources, including by legislation. And one reason is to make sure that we can manage the volatility, making sure that we have resources that can take us through during when the prices collapse. So this is something we are going to do, make sure that we have a resource, we have revenues we keep aside to take care of the volatility in commodity prices. How do we compete with others? This is something we have to deal with. I mean, we are mindful of what is happening in the world. We look even now at the global oil prices that have declined so much over the last 6 months or so. But long term, and in our discussions with the international oil companies, they tell us that long term, they believe that we can still be competitive. And in this case, really, we believe, we trust them more. They know the market. And we believe that if they thought that Tanzania can't compete, they wouldn't be investing the kind of money that they're investing. So they have looked at the long term and the geopolitics, and the markets that are emerging in Asia, and they believe that it will still be profitable to develop the gas fields in Tanzania.
What?
Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Mark Allen. I'm from the United Kingdom. Prior to this, I was working for an oil company that was exploring and producing oil in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm a petroleum engineer by background. I want to ask you some questions from the oil companies. From a typical oil company's perspective, really around 3 risks. The first risk is piracy. We know the recent piracy attacks in the region have even come perhaps down into Tanzanian waters, but certainly in the region is a concern to developing companies. Secondly, is around the change of hands. Often we find an exploration firm will be involved in the exploration phase. Companies like Ophir, for example, smaller firms that specialize in exploration, they're not so strong in development. And if we look at other assets in the region, often they change hands between the explorationists into a long-term development licensee. We've certainly seen in Uganda that the nation has imposed capital gains tax when these licenses change hands. So I was wondering if there's a threat to the oil companies through imposition of capital gains tax. And lastly, Mozambique, on your southern border, has also found even larger discoveries. And let's say they found them a year or 2 before Tanzania. And I'm wondering if there's a concept of a race to the market, that if Mozambique gets there first, then it may suppress the prices that Tanzania could fetch. So what can you do to facilitate an accelerated production from Tanzania to secure good revenues for the country and for Mozambique?
Thank you very much, Mark. Piracy, yes.
Ambassador, you might be muted. We cannot hear you.
Oh,
Now it's good. Now we can hear you again.
you hear me?
Yes, now it's good.
Okay, good. With piracy, yes, but we provide security around all the rigs. So precisely because of the concern with piracy. So they are all protected by our military, and so I don't think that's a big issue for them right now. Changing hands, yes, we have a law governing capital gains tax. So when it change hands, we expect capital gains tax. And you mentioned, I mean, Ophir just sold their interest, I think it was last year, and they paid, and we were paid capital gains tax. And we haven't had any company that thinks that is a disincentive for them to prospect or to invest in natural gas. With Mozambique, it's true, they have larger confirmed reserves than we do. But again, discussing with international oil companies, they think that there will still be market for both Tanzania and Mozambique. But the other thing also is we are not just looking at the export market, we are also looking at using some of the gas for industrial development within our own countries and our own neighboring countries. And also some of the gas will be sold to neighboring countries. So we think that there is and there will be a market for both countries.
Is it a follow-up? Specifically on this? Okay, so then it was
Hi, Ambassador. I'm Yeso from South Korea, and then I'm a MA student in International Policy Studies. And thank you for being here. And my question is, in the beginning of your discussion, you talked that Tanzanian government is aiming to avoid resource curse. And I think that the resource curse is not just about economic development, but also about preventing the government from being less accountable and less democratic, because resource revenues are not based on tax revenues. That's because that's why the public cannot have the right to monitor performance of the government. So my first question is that whether the Tanzanian government is interested in making Tanzania more credible and more accountable using this natural resource. And the second question is that then what measures are you taking? Because all the other measures you mentioned before is whether about economic development or political development. So, like for example, for sustainable development, maybe I think that maybe you have to transform more and more people into taxpayers, not just providing one-time public service or just building public infrastructure. So I am wondering, like, if you are interested in, my second question is that what measures are you taking to avoid political terms of resource curse?
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. Avoiding resource curse involves several things. One is, of course, macroeconomic stability, making sure that your macroeconomic fundamentals are always in order, making sure you don't ignore other sectors. But also, as I said in my introductory remarks, transparency is important because it enables the citizens to hold the government to account. So that's extremely important. And we are members of the EITI. So we are being assessed each year to make sure that we meet the standards that have been set by EITI. And right now we are trying to benchmark everything that we are doing in terms of the policy options we are thinking of and the actions that we are thinking of against global best practices, which include issues of transparency and accountability. So this is something that the government takes very, very seriously. And we are going to benchmark ourselves against global best practices.
Let's do Nestor and Rami, and maybe there's maybe time for one. Yeah, okay, so these four. So Nestor, Rami, Luke, and okay, perfect.
Hello, Ambassador. Thanks very much for your time. My name is Nestor Silva. I'm a PhD student in anthropology. My work focuses on the oil industry in Ecuador and Colombia. My question is about China. So it seems that China is playing a big role not only in developing these natural gas finds, but outside of the energy sector in Tanzania. How are you working to balance repaying China's investments with the question of diversifying the economy and investing? Those two things seem like they very much be at odds. So how are you working to negotiate those things?
Thank you very much. China is more involved in the pipeline. We're building the gas pipeline from Mtwara, where the gas is found, to Dar es Salaam, and they gave us a loan, and it's a loan. It's a loan to build that pipeline. It's built by a Chinese company, but it's a loan that we took from the Chinese, and we are going to repay that loan from the gas proceeds. China is not yet involved in prospecting for gas. They have showed interest, but they are not very active right now. Maybe in the future.
Your Excellency, yes, so Tanzania is ethnically diverse. There are examples where democracy and ethnic diversity are a dangerous mix. When a country discovers natural resources, so think of Nigeria and Iraq, what's your country's plan to address them? Because you already alluded to some disturbances in the gas line region.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you rightly said, we pride ourselves in being a country in Africa that has managed to blend the people. We are 125 different tribes. You know, we have almost an equal number of Christians and Muslims, but we have managed to blend all the people so that they think of themselves first as Tanzanians, not identifying themselves by their tribes or by their religion. And this is something we treasure, and we are going to make sure that nothing changes that. So I don't see how the gas issue will feed into that. It's true that some of these areas where the gas has been discovered, they're predominantly Muslim. You know, this is along the coast, and you have more Muslims there. But it has never emerged in Tanzania as a religious issue, that it's Christians versus Muslims or the rights of this. It's more that the people of Mtwara, where the gas is found, what do we get out of this? Not because they were Muslims or because we are Christians. But this is something we are going to take care of, in terms of making sure that we don't end up in such a situation where people think that it's because we're Christians or because we're Muslims or because of this tribe or that tribe. We have to maintain the character of our nation.
And how well are these tribes represented in government? Is there sort of an equal equilibrium, equal representation more or less in the government among Christians, Muslims, and the various tribes?
Yeah, you know what we did from almost after independence was we, as a government, we really don't want to know people's religion or people's tribes, because we say it's irrelevant. We provide services, we provide development to all citizens, regardless of their religions or their tribes. So even in our census, when we conduct a census, there is no question that asks people, what is your religion or what is your tribe? But Having said that, so we really don't have a policy of how we distribute positions in government or anything like that. But it is always prudent for people in power to make sure that all people, regardless of their religion or their tribes, get a fair share of, whether it's in terms of development, whether it's in terms of jobs. We make sure that there is that kind of balance. But we really don't go about saying, you know, how many people of this tribe should be in government, or how many Muslims, or how many Christians. No.
Thank you. So, George, continue on.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Luke Roheffer. I'm a graduate student with an area studies program focusing on Eurasia. And Your Excellency, I had a quick question. One of the best benchmarks for measuring whether or not a society is avoiding the resource curse is looking at the number of internationally registered patents being produced per capita. I was curious as to whether or not you had any information, data on whether or not Tanzania is increasing its number of patents that are being produced.
No, unfortunately, no. You mean patents? Somebody discovers something and is patented?
Yes.
I mean, we have a registry, they register the patents, but I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers, I'm sorry.
Okay. Hi, Ambassador. I'm Noah Garcia, and I'm a master's student in the public policy program. Thank you very much for your time. And I thought you had brought up an interesting point about how much Tanzania should export versus use domestically. So I have two more downstream questions. The first is, how robust is Tanzania's existing pipelines infrastructure? And second of all, do you see more exports happening on the continent with other neighboring countries, or more on the broader international market via liquefied natural gas, more expensive liquefied natural gas exports?
I'm sorry, I didn't get you. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The second one was, do you see more exports happening over land via international pipelines with other sub-Saharan African countries, or do you see more exports happening on broader international markets via liquefied natural gas exports?
Well, right now we work on a rough figure of 5 to 10% export. No, I'm sorry, 5 to 10% for the local market, and depending on the needs of the international oil companies, because sometimes their profitability depends on the exports, the export markets. But we have an understanding in the region that the countries that have gas should also be exporting to neighboring countries. One option that was being discussed for Tanzania was maybe a gas pipeline to Kenya. So this is something for the region, we don't yet have a number, but we as I said, we want to balance between exports, the region, and we want to keep 5 to 10% for the domestic market.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, is there one final question, or can we wrap up? Yeah. Okay, you have the final last.
I just one last thing. You mentioned that in part export revenues support domestic generation. Can you explain or expand upon this a little more? And do you have any concerns that this leaves Tanzania open to energy access security issues?
Yeah, I said we want to use a lot of the gas a significant amount of the gas to generate power, because we believe that power shortage is one of the biggest obstacles to the growth of the economy. So we are going to do that, but we are not going to be totally dependent on gas. We want to have an energy basket that includes gas, that includes hydro, that includes renewables, and a little bit of coal as well. So we are not going to rely entirely on gas.
Okay, so I think I don't want to keep you any longer. Your day has, your day has been very long already, Ambassador. So I think we all want to give you a hand of applause as a thank you.
Thank you.
I promised a very engaged discussion, and I think that's what we had. And we could go on much longer, but being mindful of your time, I want to say goodbye and shukran.
Thank you very much, and good luck, and hope to visit Stanford at some point again.
Yes, do let us know, and we would love to welcome you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.